Hey there, and welcome to That's Audacious, where we share entrepreneurial stories from amazing leaders to inspire and motivate you to be bold, brave, and audacious. I'm your host, Lauren Clement, the brand navigator, here to share stories that will make you say, well, that's audacious. Hello and welcome to this episode of the That's Audacious podcast. I'm so excited with our amazing guest today. The lovely Anneli Blundell is here, and we have been waiting to have this conversation for a long time. So
Thanks so much for listening to the That's Audacious podcast.
She's a communication
Remember,
dynamics
there's
expert.
no place
She's
for
a
modesty
speaker. She's
in
an
business.
author.
And
I've
you
been
do
following
deserve to be
her,
well known, well
footsteps
paid,
with a lot
and
of what I do, but also looking
For more
at the way
episodes,
she
please
has
subscribe
really
to the
built an
podcast
amazing,
on your favourite channel,
credible
or follow
profile,
us online.
not only for
The
those
links
that she
are in the
speaks for, but
description
those
below.
she works with. And she really is on a mission to humanize the leadership landscape and change the conversation culture at work. And that's such an important topic, especially when we're all running around the place trying to get things done. There's all sorts of stuff going on in the workplace around psychological safety and the active bystanding because people don't know what to say anymore. So the time is right for what she does, and I can't wait to share her story with you. Anneli, tell us a little bit about where you came from and what led you into what you do with communications.
Sure. First, can I just say, Lauren, I want to take you with me everywhere I go, and you can be my formal introducer because that was just wonderful. I loved that. Thank you very much. So who am I? What got me started? What do I do? So my name is Anneli Blundell. I'm a communication dynamics expert, as you said, and I really started this work over 20 years ago when it comes to my own business. So this year is pretty monumental for me. It's my 20th year in business, and I'm turning 50. So all the celebrations, very exciting. Before that, though, I worked in the corporate world. So I was in the banking sector. Hello, my name's Anneli. I'm officially a corporate refugee. And so I got out of that pretty quickly and moved into my own coaching consulting operation. And so really it was something that I had been passionate about for a long time, which was communication and connection. And it started very simply as me wanting to be an executive coach, which I did. But over time, when you work with individuals, they want you to come and work with their teams, and then they want you to do something for the whole organization. And before I know it, now I'm on national stages and I'm writing books. And Lauren, I did not set out to do any of those things just quietly. So it has certainly been an evolution, but the core focus for me the whole time has been communication dynamics. And the reason I talk about it in terms of communication dynamics and not just communication or influence or persuasion or any of that stuff is because for me, communication is very much alive. You know, we can't just give people scripts and think that they're going to nail it because there's another human on the other side of that equation. And it's a very dynamic process. And so it's not just about knowing what to say and when to say it and how to say it and all those good things. It's about being able to read the other person, read the room, understand the context, really know yourself in relation to other people and what you need to do to meet them where they're at. So what I do now is I help organizations build cultures of conversation where the dialogue really drives results. And that could be anything from, as I mentioned, one-on-one executive coaching, working with leadership teams or executive teams, running leadership development programs organization-wide, to headlining conferences, and writing books, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I love it. So that's really interesting in that
Thanks
we're
so
talking
much
about
for
the
listening to the
dynamics
That's
of
Audacious
communication.
podcast.
So it's not just
Remember,
about,
there's no
as you
place
say,
for
power
modesty
persuasion
in
and all these other
business.
things that we do.
And you do deserve to
Can
be
you
well
really
known,
define
well
what
paid,
your
and wanted.
unique approach to
For more
that
episodes, please
encompasses? So
subscribe
how
to
do
the
you
podcast
work
on your
out
favourite channel,
whether the
or follow
dynamics
us
of an
online.
organization's
The links
communication
are in the
are good
description
or
below.
bad, or what their particular culture is, and how what is your unique approach to not necessarily fixing that, but helping them improve?
So there's a couple of things. Firstly, this is not just about skills or capability. It's about the cultural context. So I take a two-prong approach. You know, this is not, we don't just teach people coaching skills in a vacuum, or we don't just teach them how to have critical conversations in a vacuum. We need to take into account the culture of conversations that are already happening or not happening within the organizational context. So I really make sure I'm taking that two-prong approach. It's capability and its cultural context. But in terms of my philosophy, as it were, because I'm talking about cultures of conversation here, I'm really looking at leadership conversations, and they really fall into two main categories. To be as simple as possible, soft and hard. That's pretty much the simplest I can make them. But really, I talk about them as conversations of care versus conversations of courage. So this might be how you support your team with empathy, with vulnerability, with emotional intelligence, building psychological safety, versus conversations of courage, where we're challenging them, where we're holding them to account, we're giving difficult feedback, you know, we're holding them to a greater standard. So we've constantly got to be balancing, how do we dial up this, you know, strength and warmth, or fairness and firmness, whatever language you want to use, the soft and the hard. And so I find within a culture of an organization, they're typically over-indexing on one or the other. If you've got a culture where everybody, and I hear this, our culture's wonderful, it's lovely, everyone is so affirming and they're lovely. And I go, that's amazing, that's great. Everyone's so nice. I go, how do you go with difficult conversations? Oh, no, we don't have them. No. Your performance feedback, no. Everybody gets a bonus. And I'm like, well, yeah. So when we over-index on one, we're missing out on the value of the other, because you need to have both. If we over-index on the challenge or those courageous conversations, this is where people aren't being nice enough. They're not caretaking enough of their people. And this is too direct, it's too harsh, and this can lead to a toxic work environment, right? So we really need to be pulling on both of those levers. And for me, the core piece that holds all of those things together is your ability to calibrate. So we've got care conversations, courageous conversations, and your personal ability to calibrate to the person in front of you. Because there's what's the culture like? Are we all too nice to each other? So if I come in and now I deal with you, Lauren, and I need to give you some difficult feedback, if I bring too much of that courageous energy, it's probably going to seem way too much, because this culture is very nice. Yeah. You know, so I have to sort of calibrate to who you are, to what's happening in the culture, to who I am as a leader, what's going on in the moment with that person, in order to know how much I dial up or dial down each of those things. And then, of course, there are things that sit around that in the cultural context, like, you know, the emotional dynamics, your ability to manage your own state, to regulate your emotional footprint, you know, to be able to lean into difficult conversations. All leaders are contagious. So the emotional state you show up with infects and affects those, you know, conversation levers. And there's power dynamics, and there's all sorts of things at play. The care, the courage, and the ability to collaborate between the two is fundamentally what I focus on when I'm thinking about how do we build cultures of conversation where dialogue drives results.
Yeah, nice. What I love about this, and it's almost like a no-brainer when you think about it, is that you spend so much of your time working out the culture of that business and that organization, so much so that you can go, right, this is what you're doing really well. This is where you're missing out on opportunity. And it could even be that, you know, there's less innovation or less performance, or because they're being too nice, or because they're being too harsh on people and they're not allowing people to fail. Or you really take that time to understand the culture before coming back with, hey, this is how we improve it. Because there would be, I'd imagine, a lot of communication experts who go and going, this is how we should be talking to each other, without actually taking the time to work out how they're currently operating and what they're currently doing, and really fitting that culture with the communication. Who are the people you mostly work with, Anneli? Is it like mining, where you've got people who are under high pressure? Is it first responders? Is it the banking finance world, where no one can make a mistake because it's, you know, they're raked over the coals if they have a problem? Anneli, who is it you work with mostly?
So it's mostly in the white collar professional services arenas. So it might be professional services, it might be banking and finance, it can be retail, but it's mostly corporate offices, head offices, rather than frontline necessarily, because we're really talking about the senior management to exec level management, sometimes middle management conversations, right? So how do we get work done around this place? How do we live into our cultural values, which is harder, easier said than done. And so it's really about the organizations that need to focus on employee engagement, are thinking about employee voice. That's become a big thing as well now. So we know that employees are now looking to have greater autonomy. They want to be heard. They want to be seen and recognized. They want to have a say in how they work and how they do their work. And so, it's really understanding, like you said, what's the industry that we're in, and what kind of conversational lever does that lend itself to? So is it R&D? Is it innovation? Is it a safety and compliance culture, right? Because they would be very different cultures. But all in all, it is very much around the leadership conversations and how they are impacting the results.
Yeah. And I guess it is a top-down thing, isn't it? You've got to go in and talk to those high-level leaders because they set the tone, don't they, for the organisation. So, yeah. Anneli, what's been one, you've worked with some extraordinary people, looking at your brand and your partnerships and the people you speak for and the people you lead. What's been one of your biggest achievements that you're really, really proud of?
Well, I'm not going to pick on a particular client because that would be like choosing a favorite child. And I don't want the phone calls like, why didn't you choose us? All my clients are my favorite clients, and we've all had the best wins. So what I would say is something I'm really proud of is my client tenure. So, even if I get asked to come in and do, a small piece of work with a small cohort of leaders, which happens quite a lot, maybe in one particular department or area, they want to introduce a coaching skills for leaders program as an example. And then 5 years later, we've rolled it out through the whole organization. Like that happens a lot. And that's something I'm really proud of because that speaks to the relevance of what we're doing, the impact of what we're doing. You don't keep finding budget year on year when budgets are tight for something that's not delivering. Yeah. So client tenure is something I'm really, really proud of. And of course, because we're talking about awards, and we are on an awards podcast essentially as well. One thing I'm very, very proud of is my Learning and Development Professional of the Year award from Australian Institute of Training and Development. Yes, yeah. I'm very proud of that one.
The industry awards are the best, aren't they? Because it absolutely sets you above the peers that you are competing with as someone who is absolutely credible and worthy of those awards. You are listening to the That's Audacious podcast. If you like the conversations you're hearing, there are plenty more of incredible, motivational, inspirational people who've grown amazing profiles in our other episodes. Please find us wherever you find your favorite podcasts and like and subscribe to make sure you get the next one. Now, let's talk a little bit about awards. What have you done with those awards in terms of helping that boost your profile? And what have you been doing in terms of how you build your profile in quite a competitive space as one of the credible leaders out there?
So mostly it's about the visual artifacts. I let a lot of the imaging speak for itself because it does. It's very compelling, I have to say, as I'm looking at your background, having it on sign-offs in my email, having it in my bio introduction, if I'm on keynotes, and here's a picture of me and the clients I've worked with and the awards that I've won and the books that I've written. All of that are artifacts that build a picture of credibility where I don't have to say, oh, you should trust me, I'm really good, please. So I like that they speak for themselves. So I let the visuals do the work most of the time.
I love it. And it is like a little extra sign off, isn't it? That yes, you've got, hey, here I am in the media, here I am working with these big clients. Oh, and by the way, I've won awards for what I do. Do you think it's helped you at all as a speaker to really reinforce your credibility? I mean, I know you're a CSP as well.
Yes.
Do you find that all of those things just back up the fact that you can be trusted to deliver on stage?
Absolutely. And for me, that's one of the reasons why I was really interested to start entering awards, because, you know, I haven't got a PhD. I have not been, you know, CEO of a Fortune 500 company. So, you know, without the, I guess, the credibility of some of those types of backgrounds, really what you've got is the great work. And the great work, we all want to think speaks for itself. But I tell you right now, a little shiny gold medal speaks so much louder than the past 5 clients that you've had that nobody really gets to talk to or hear about, right? And so clients make this unconscious, you know, link. This is why we do it, that gold medal means you have worked with excellent clients and delivered great results in the work that you do. So there's something very affirming for clients that you are a safe pair of hands, that you are proven, and that they can trust you. Now, I have to say, not all awards are created equal. You know this. There are some awards that are very easy to get. You shoot off a 400-word paragraph and Bob's your uncle, you've won. I'm like, what? What? I've spent 10,000 words in a month on some of these, you know, awards, and I've gone through every piece of my business, literally from inside out. I've got testimonials from all over the place and, you know, like case studies and all that kind of stuff. And that to me means way more, but the client doesn't discern. They don't know what process you went through. So really, one trophy is as good as another when it comes to affirming that client credibility.
Yeah. And I mean, you were one of the first that I saw using the laurel leaves as well around the trophies. And the laurel leaves, which is weird because my name is Lauren, which comes from the laurel tree. So I've actually got an acronym, which is a name that basically describes what you do, like Alexander Graham Bell, who designed the telephone. So here's Lauren, who's the laurel leaves, which is this international symbol of victory, working on awards for people. But I understand that whole idea of the visual element that you use really, really well. Have you got any plans to do more awards into the future?
Possibly. I would, you know, never say never. I do. It's very interesting because I'm strategic with my awards relationship with awards. My strategy is I would like to have ones that are meaningful to me. I don't just want ones that I think are just easy to get. I want ones that line up with the things I do in the different industries that I'm in, right? So as we talked about before, I do a number of different things. I'm not just an executive coach. I'm not just a keynote speaker. I run a number of modalities. They all feed into one another. So I was really going for, and I've got, you know, awards for books that I've written. I've got awards for being a professional, L&D Professional of the Year. I've got awards for various programs that I run, coaching leaders, you know, coaching skills for leaders, women at work programs. So I've got a bit of a strategy where it's either the services or programs I provide or the modalities that I operate under. And I'm also conscious that I don't just want to apply every year and win the same thing every year, because then I feel like I get caught into the, what if you don't apply one year? What if you don't win one year? What is that? That's too much, right? So, and it's a lot of work. Honestly, it's a lot of work to enter these awards if you're doing it well, and if they're, well, depending on the award that you're entering, of course.
Yeah, so, I love your approach, because when you've got a strategic approach, it means that it doesn't matter when you win it, you can keep repurposing it and leveraging it and using it for years and years and years later. So because it makes sense to you, makes sense to your audience, fits with your brand and your positioning. Anneli, if there was somebody listening to this and they're going, look, this sounds really interesting. I love the idea of dynamic communication. Maybe we need to get her to come and talk to us about how we can be communicating better and so on. What are some of the first bits of advice you would give someone maybe who's going, look, is it more about first diagnosing what's not working in terms of communication in your organization, or is it more about what are some of the quick fixes that you could start to look at? What would you do first?
So if they're wanting to lift the core capability of communication across their organization, if that's what you're asking, then I want diagnosis, baby. I want to know what the real problem is. I don't just want to know what they think the problem is. I want all the data I can get my hands on. So do you have employee surveys? So for example, I just recently did a keynote at a conference for a large organization, and communication came through as one of their number one gaps in the business. All areas of the business, all parts of the geographical spread across the world, actually, communication came through number one. So I did a keynote at the conference to kick off the focus on communication capability uplift. So that was one thing. And now we're about to do work together to say, okay, now what does communication capability uplift really look like? So I'm interested in things like, what's the impact of the lack of communication? Like, how do we know this is really a problem? What's not happening as a result? What is happening as a result? What are you measuring? What are the metrics that we can use to show that actually there has been an impact or there hasn't? As in, how does it tie to the business outcome? And I'm really interested in tying it to day-to-day operations. So it's very easy to say, here's how you can do critical conversations, or here's how to have difficult conversations. But it's much more impactful if we can say, hey, this is an environment that's very much focused on innovation, as you said, or we're focused on safety and compliance, or we're regulated. Okay, great. So let's use those examples when we're running through this model. Let's use actual case studies of stuff that you're doing. I don't want to just provide that generic model. I want as much as possible to tie it to the relevance of their day-to-day job. Otherwise, they come to a program, they have a nice lunch, they tick a feedback form, and they go back and they never make the link that this is relevant on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, nothing changes. Well, I think from that, we probably have a few people maybe listening to this going, you know what, we're not measuring anything. We're not even tracking. So let's first start by getting some measurements in place. As you said, the feedback from your team, you know, making sure you're regularly asking for that seems to be a real no-brainer, but so few people actually do it. And they wait until there's some sort of performance issue before they talk to people. So yeah, awesome. Hey, if you've been listening to this conversation and you want to know more, we will have links to for you to get in contact with Anneli and all of the things that she does. We have one final question in this fabulous conversation that we've had. Thank you so much. It's been awesome. Anneli, if you could go back and give yourself some advice that might help you for where you are now, what would that be?
Start sooner, be braver, think bolder.
Oh, I love it. Now there's a challenge. Absolutely. I think maybe with leadership people and people who love that and seeing the impact of that on other people's leadership, that probably is similar across the board. We all wish we could have gotten into this a lot sooner, because I think you're the same as me. You live off of the fact that you are implementing such an impact, a positive impact on other people's lives, and seeing that happen. So yeah, phenomenal. Do you have any last final tips for anybody in terms of how they might communicate better as a leader?
Yes, I would say it is never too late to get better. It's never too late to get better. It doesn't matter what role you're in, what position you've attained. It is never too late to invest in developing your communication skills.
Brilliant. I love it, Anneli. It's been awesome to have you on the call. I've so loved chatting to you about this. And please, if you want to know more about Anneli and what she does, please click on those links below and get in touch. Get hold of her book, get her to come in and speak for your organisation, or to run workshops with you, because the results look like they are amazing. So thank you so much. Thank you for listening. And remember, you do deserve to be well known, well paid and wanted. Get out there and be audacious. Thanks so much for listening to the That's Audacious podcast. Remember, there's no place for modesty in business, and you do deserve to be well known, well paid and wanted.
For more episodes, please subscribe to the podcast on your favourite channel or follow us online. The links are in the description below.